look what I got. 1977, the first year of Lego Technic. Car chassis, which somehow has gotten more expensive over the last 45 years, but hey, you gotta have a hobby. I built this, but as I typically do, if you've seen my Lego stuff over the years, I try to improve on that. And over the Christmas period, I made a variant of the 8865 Lego kit, which is the 1988 test car, which I turned into a Lotus 49, complete with 3-speed gearbox, independent suspension, of course, with some improvements, such as there is now caster angle, which is not in the default in the default kit. It's too hot to think. It also has unequal length wishbones, big improvement, and a nice 3-speed gearbox operated from in the cockpit. There, nice 1, 2, 3, with a rod going back all the way from inside there, and then you see it pop out there, going all the way back to the gearbox here. Selected like that. So some of those improvements were nice, and can all be made using just so that thing can be made completely with just the 8865. This is really scary. 8865 kit. No other parts needed. So when I got this one, I had the same idea. What can I do to improve on Lego's design? Now, first of all, 1977, of course, this is very early. Lots of parts were yet to be invented for Technic Lego. But one of the properties of this thing, it is huge. It's also really high. And look at those seats, have no side bolstering. There is a back seat, but who needs a back seat? Can we make it a bit more sporty? This has a 2-speed gearbox, which in fact is a forward and reverse gear. So can I make it a little bit better than that? Well, you saw from the intro, I made something that is at least a lot slimmer. So let's have a look. Oh, by the way, 1977, look at the box. It's just cool how many alternative models are on display here. There's a little truck, a little sort of milling or turning table, some examples of what you can do. A dragster, I didn't know that. So lots of alternatives shown on the box. It's really cool, more than later models. Mine came with assembly instructions both in a book, which has some, again, like if you can make the top one there if you have a few more kits. But it's the typical Lego instructions. The first year this came out, it didn't have those instructions. So let's open the box a little bit. Look at that guy. So the inner box has like walls with like styrofoam, and the outer walls as well. So this box is really sturdy, way better than newer ones. And then you lift the paper and goodies. So that instruction book I showed you didn't come with the kit, I don't think, in 1977. They made a few changes. So this is what you had in 77, single sheet. So the engine and the steering assembly there. And then, yeah, good luck with it. That's your car. So look at the more modern Lego where you get like thick books with like pin by pin. And this is sort of, yeah, you're on your own. But this was probably a bit too tricky, so they came up with that book that I showed you, which has a few more steps and also has a beefed up steering area. So they made a few changes, which I didn't know and was interesting. Which we could make at home, but I actually lost one of the wheels and then we could only make a freewheeler, so oops, my bad. I was like 6, you know, give me a break. B model instructions and to scale the main model, sort of a poster. It's pretty nice. You can see though how high the engine sits, and sort of on top of the front wheels. So it's not great for the weight distribution, and the center of gravity is high. Look at the ride height is really high. So with this look at the original 1977 model out of the way, how did I improve it? Well, first of all, I wanted to get the engine sort of mid-front engined, and that meant going from the straight 4 into a V engine. So I made a 4-cylinder V, which sits behind the front axle, and only you can see like how tightly it barely fits. See there, this beam coming out at an angle barely misses the engine. And if you look at the front, There you see a universal joint for the steering, just about misses the engine and comes out the side of it. And of course, if we steer, the tire just misses the steering shaft. It all just fits. And you see the nature of the square pistons is that the rows are offset a little bit. It's offset to the back a little bit from the other row. And I had to do that because this gives me a little bit more room to get that steering shaft in there. So it's pretty tight. Look at the side view here. It is really low. So the crankshaft sits on the floor, basically. That's the crankshaft. It's the lowest thing on the car. So the engine is as low as it can go. And all the gear train for 2 forward, 1 reverse gear is also on the same floor level. That had the effect of moving the seats out, you know. It's like COVID-proof seat spacing, but hey. This uses basically all the parts. I only have a few pins left and a few axles with the length 2. You can see the drivetrain. I started to make a transmission tunnel there out of the blue parts. The drivetrain goes like through there. Let's go into first gear. So that is the large gear wheel with 100 teeth. And then there's this right angle gear with I think 24 teeth, so that's about a 4-time increase. And then it arrives at this shaft here with 3 of the small gears. And when we shift, you can see in all gears the moving shift rod is connected to these 3 gears right here. In this gear you can see the drivetrain going from here up to that shaft into the engine. And when we shift to second gear, it goes there to the main shaft and then to this, and then it's a reduction of 3 times into the gear. And then we have another gear if we shift forward. Now those 3 small gears here are connected, and that with an extra gear in between reverses the direction, so we have a 2 plus reverse situation. I'd say the seating position is fairly ergonomic. You see the enough leg room there. You could potentially hold on to that wheel, and even the gear stick is sort of nicely positioned here. This is in the most forward gear. Ironically, this gear, you see I'm actually shifting these gears now, which is way harder on most other kits, because I think using a lot of those smaller gears with only 8 cogs makes it easier to sort of be aligned and able to shift. So it's the easiest car you can shift that I've made in since I've been doing Lego really. And the seats are sort of nicely reclined, also have a bit of bolstering, even a little bit of like lower back support. And of course we have a partial shelf right there. And I managed to make the model a little bit more sturdy. There are no 6 length beams, only 2, 4 and 8 and 16. So we have some verticality here. Here there's a beam with the 2 gray pins going vertical. Behind the steering you can see a diagonal beam, which is also adding a little bit of like clamping the front bit together. At the rear it's the same, a diagonal beam again there, and at the back actually visible there is a vertical beam there, so clamping everything into space, making it fairly tight. I felt this was a reasonably nice design. I only have a few pins and short shafts left. We have dual exhausts coming up from the rear here. That's fairly nice, sticking through the bumper. Angled bits on the front bumper, making it a bit less square. So, well, is this pointless? Absolutely. Did I have an enjoyable, 20-30 hours building? Yeah. And this is the result, a much lower to the ground. It will handle a lot better with the mid-engine, an extra gear, a lower center of gravity, seats that actually bolster you in a little bit, better ergonomics, you can reach the gear stick and the wheel a lot better, and you have a little partial shelf for your stuff and an antenna. You need that antenna, obviously. The steering rack is actually a bit slower, which I did on purpose. It's about 2 turns lock to lock, which is a bit more realistic than the original car. And it's achieved by a reduction of 1 to 3. A slightly closer look at the steering. You see just how tight that is with the universal joint. just going past, and when we follow that universal joint to the front, there you see a short shaft with a small gear, and then if you flip it up, you see the small gear goes to a large gear, and that goes towards the engine again, driving the small gear, which then does the rack and pinion. And I just connected those other gears for fun. They don't do anything, but then you get a bit of turning gears. And on top here of the engine, well, I had lots of gears left, so I figured let's make sort of a supercharger or whatever it is. And while I was running out of parts really quickly, I managed to add like a strut brace on the front, which actually noticeably helps the stiffness of the build as well. But I had a lot of fun trying to do this, being constrained to what came with the original kit. These are the only parts I could use, and I found that to be a huge amount of fun and a big challenge. Also with that there, the Lotus, it's very often on YouTube you see people doing amazing things with Lego, but they have all the Lego in the world and trying to do it with just one kit that you would have, maybe if you were very lucky you've had one of these kits as a child, you know, you wouldn't have many other Lego kits to combine and make something amazing. So being limited to just original parts and then making something different with it, that's been a lot of fun. So, did this interest you the slightest? Probably not, but hey. Bye bye.